So the main things that happened, mm, I've tried a higher dose of acid, 140 micrograms. It was too much for the system. The potatoes didn't want me to go inside, so I didn't. Another huge thing that happened, well, that girl O was in the ecstatic that I go to every Sunday. And it was the first time that I danced towards the ending of the ecstatic. That was fucking huge for my system to experience that.
Why?
Because I have a very strong degree of shame when it
You
comes
normally
to,
don't dance?
no,
Okay.
I,
You just go. I guess that's why I asked why. It's like you've been talking about going to this thing a lot. So,
yeah, what I do is, it's kind of the same as approaching women. I would go out to that event, for example, and it's very triggering for me. So I sit with the triggers come up. So yeah, that was for my system. The fact that I danced with her is fucking huge. It's kind of, you know, a guy that is very, very lonely and would like to meet some romantic partner, but never had the guts to approach. And then for the first time, he approaches someone and she receives him well, or
yeah.
something similar. And after experiencing that, uh, something shifted in my system where so the child part became more accessible, and also the pain that they carry towards my former friend group, and especially towards the my former best friend, and towards the resistance. So I became aware that the main resistance towards even approaching this guy and asking him what about the money that he owes me is that there are some parts that are deeply, deeply hurt.
Mhm.
And to a degree it was suppressed, and now it's coming more to the surface. And it carries a lot of heaviness to it. So
Yeah.
I guess we should start there.
Okay. Yeah. I was just about to say, is your protective system, are parts okay with you connecting with that sadness? Any concerns there? I'd invite you to check in, or anything they want to share about this sadness first.
This area of my system is very, let's say, blurry.
Okay.
Maybe just try and talk with that part and see if there's access.
Okay. Yeah.
So go ahead.
Okay, I thought you were gonna connect with it. So maybe we can check what's making this blurry first. Who's making this blurry? Are you here, the blurry part?
Yes.
Okay. And tell me about you. Tell me about you. What's your role and why do you want to make things blurry?
I'm connected to the killer part that is trying to prevent a trauma bond.
Uh-huh. And what would happen if there was a trauma bond? And what I'm gonna ask you to do, if it's okay, the word kind of means a lot of things to a lot of different people. So can you describe how you're using that? What's your concern about this thing that you're calling a trauma bond?
What I'm afraid that would happen is what happens in the dreams, basically. So I dreamt about him again, maybe 2 days ago, and there was this dynamic where, in the dream, he was living next to me, and long story short, he approached, and we started to talk, and then things as if turned. We were interacting with one another as if things were
Hmm.
normal. So
And what was uncomfortable about that? Why is it uncomfortable that things might be normal between you and him?
because it doesn't take accountability, responsibility, and doesn't repair the rupture that he has caused.
Okay. So I'm hearing there's a part in you, or you are a part that expects or needs others to take accountability.
Yes.
Okay. And if they don't,
If they don't, then the probability that the negative patterns will repeat are very high,
mhm,
and there are parts that are hurt, and they have to have their needs met, to be seen, understood, validated,
mhm.
and so on.
And I get all that. I hear you. I hear you loud and clear. But one of the things I'm curious about, I want to ask you about is how do you factor in the inability to make that happen with another person? I know it's important to you, but I'm curious about this part of it.
For me, I wouldn't want other child parts to connect with a person that does such a thing unless they take steps to do a repair.
I hear that, but what about the fact that you can't control whether he does that or not?
Of course, I can't, but what I can control is allowing access to some of my parts toward him.
Correct. And in that process, the exile that Neo holds doesn't get healed. If your job is to protect that from getting hurt again, and at all costs, you make sure that's separate. And please hear me out. I'm not saying you should connect with him. I'm just talking about what about Neo connecting with himself and allowing that part to heal. I get it. It makes complete sense not to interact with him. But I'd rather focus on Neo, and I quite honestly think you probably would too.
Well, yes, that would be good.
Okay. And that might, well, it would require, I shouldn't say might, that would require eventually when you're okay with that, stepping back and allowing whatever exile you're protecting
Of course.
to heal. But you might have more. You might have more to say first. But I just wanted to emphasize it seems I'm picking up there's a lot of energy around him, maybe versus energy for Neo.
Mm, I'm not
Y-
having my hopes that healing will come through him. I'm just putting a
Oh,
boundary to not get close to him.
yeah. And if your focus is that, and if we stay just focused on that, then the exile won't get healed.
Of course. So we agree.
Okay. So is there anything else we should discuss, or would you be all right with, and I'm not trying to push you or rush you, but you seem pretty resolved. So
The parts for the exile causes kind of a system collapse.
the pause, did you say the what for the exile? Just missed the word.
The
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 what for
pa-
the
the pain of the exile causes uh, a system collapse if it's too much on the surface. So the suppressing part are doing a good job at
Mhm.
are doing a good job at allowing a certain degree of pain because too much will cause the system to collapse. And yeah,
Okay. So what we can do is invite the exile not to overwhelm the system. Just heal a little bit at a time, maybe.
sure, we can try that.
Okay. So I'd invite you and not the part. I'd invite Neo to connect with that exile first and just ask him, if he knows what's going on, if he's getting this, and I'll talk to him, but I want to invite you to connect with him too. Does he know this bit about maybe softening some and not overwhelming the system so he can heal?
Second.
Can you say that again? I missed.
So I'm getting this kind of resistance,
Hmm.
and I'm trying to do
Sure.
it. And
I'd check in with that.
yeah, and then usually when I experience this type of resistance, what I'll do is I'll sit and I'll do some kind of a process that I call emotional vipassana, where basically what I'm doing is I'm sitting straight and
Hmm.
I'm noticing whatever happens without trying to change anything and allowing my breath to be natural. And if I don't breathe, then I don't breathe. I'm just present with it. And then at some point, this kind of a lid will come off,
Hmm.
and I'll usually experience a burst of emotion, and then access to the pot will open up.
And something's resisting that. I'm taking it. Is that what you're saying?
So that part of resisting, I don't know if it's another part speaking for it, but that part is saying I'm doing enough. The system does enough work by myself, so it would like another person to kind of penetrate it.
Oh, sure. That sounds good. Do you have any suggestions or guidance for me? Because you know the system best. You do a lot of work. So,
But yeah, at the same time, I'm curious about it.
we
Why
can do it together.
the type of resistance is very kind of a non-negotiable to the point where it doesn't even want to talk. And then I'm doing this process, and then it kind of gains trust, and then the system shifts.
Hmm. Yeah, I've always been, we've talked about it. I've always been curious about your system wanting someone else, not to do the work. I mean, you do lots of work, but it's just, it is a curiosity.
Yeah.
Because you can definitely, I don't like that word. The other word I was going to say was clearly, but um, you have the self energy to unburden. It's just curious about that part that always wants someone else to do it. You're gonna ask it. I'm imagining that's what you're doing.
Part is saying that it needs to be seen by others.
Mm. And I guess I'm curious if it would be open. Um, on one hand, I'll just ask the question generally, why does it need to be seen by others? And more specifically, why isn't being seen by Neo's self enough? So it can take either or both. Those.
So that part is saying that the self is kind of the container for everything. I had this what is part? I had this experience, let's say, probably like 4 years ago, when me, that former friend, and another girl, we had
The
an
the same
intention.
friend that we're the same
Uh,
friend that we're
uh,
connected to right now. Okay.
uh, he met this girl, the three of us connected, blah, blah, blah. We had an intention to have a threesome and do MDMA together. I knew that my system is in a vulnerable place, so I set expectations with them that it might be that no sexual activity will be even a thing, because I
Mm.
know how MDMA affects my system. We did it, and I experienced a very strong presence of an egg there. Then, so she knows me for a very little while. She doesn't even know about IFS and all those things, but she had the right energy that I felt that could be a part of this
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. Sure.
So I told her, and my former friend, he knows exactly how my system works in those ways. So I told her, listen, I'm feeling the presence of this kind of part of my personality, and I'm gonna go into it. At the same time, I always have an objective perspective, always also present at the same time. So if at any moment I need to come out from this part, I can do it.
Okay.
So it's kind of the same thing for my system. Like it kind of needs to be witnessed by others in its full embodiment. And and then if I think Okay, this is a more logical part thinking. There's something about the exposure that my system needs. For some, I'm not sure why exactly. Um, but that's, for example, part of the reason why I'm doing these therapy sessions online,
Mhm.
uploading them. There's something about the exposure that my system needs.
Okay. Yeah, I would follow that. Yeah, it seems you're curious about it. Discover more, lean into this importance
It's the same
of
where, for example,
exposure.
like 90% of the time, if I'm gonna be at home, my ability to do the inner work is very, very limited. I get
Sure,
disconnected very
sure.
strongly. But the moment I go outside, even if it's for a walk, my system opens up. So there is something about the exposure that is crucial for my system.
Yeah,
I have the sense that it's something that has to do with shame.
makes sense. Has a lot to do with shame, right? So I'm hearing, I don't know this. It's something I'm theorizing. Sounds like there could be a part that its protection or role, maybe protection might not even fit that word, but its role is to expose your system to shame, to sort of, in a sense, like inoculate it. And I mean, from the work we've done a long time, you've talked about your visits to the beach and different things. This sounds related, like maybe this part is trying to inoculate you to shame.
What do you mean by inoculate?
Oh, okay. Like when you get a vaccination,
Mm,
that's to be inoculated.
gotcha,
Yeah, sorry, it's probably a
gotcha. I
translation word there. Sorry. So you just build up resistance, over time.
think resistance could be a byproduct. It's as if there is no access or resistance to get access if it's not exposed. I believe I'm wondering how much of this patterning the system has to do with the demon.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm grateful for his assistance. He has tons and tons of access to self energy. And I'm pretty sure he knows this, and I hope I'm not shaming him by this, but
I don't,
he's not self.
100%.
Yeah.
My former therapist said once that he thinks that the demon is aiming for something that he called the big self, something like this. Have you heard about it?
N no, I'm curious about it, but I mean, my instinct says like like a universal self, like connected to something greater than you. I mean, I guess that's the sense that I'm getting, but
It's, yeah, the aim is what I told you that I had this experience of like 30 seconds of being probably in full self mode at the beach a few years ago. And then some part in me panicked, remember?
yeah, I mean, yes, I don't remember all the details, but yeah, I
Yeah.
remember you discussing it. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, the suggestion in my system is for you to talk to the part that misses my former best friend and let people have access to it.
Okay. All right. Great. So where is it that that part shows up? Like, do you have access to him, the one that's missing your friend?
Just say the part that misses the friend, are you there? And let's see what happens.
Okay. The part that misses Neo's friend, are you there?
I'm kind of hidden behind other parts.
Okay. Are we going to need to speak to these other parts first, or I can ask them if they would give space? If they don't, then I'll just connect with them. So other parts that are hiding this part, are you open to giving space so I can speak with him?
Part that was speaking is either behind or inside the killer part.
Okay. So killer part, are you here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So are you hiding this part that's connected to Neo's friend? Is it you that's hiding him?
I don't know how much is it conscious or, but I just feel very strong levels of anger.
Okay. Tell me about your anger. Connect with your anger. What are you angry about?
It's the kind of anger that when Neo is sitting, for example, in the ecstatic dance and connects to it,
Hmm.
his body is shaking so fucking hard that some other part needs to be conscious that I'm not clenching the fist too hard to not damage my bones or my ligaments. Because that happened
Okay.
before.
Okay. That's intense anger.
And the jaw, yes,
Yeah. And what does your anger do for you? How does it serve?
pushes these weak motherfuckers away from me.
Hmm. Why do you need them away from you?
Because they can't handle their own wounds in a way that is appropriate. And instead of that, they act in ways that they regret afterwards. Projecting, painting in black, manipulating, lying, betraying, all those stuff.
Yeah. Right. I'm trying to think, and I'm in a part stepping in, so that's that was the sigh. This part wants to like help you. You're laughing. Want to help you because I feel that you're stuck. Do you feel stuck?
Depends on what you mean by stuck.
Mm. What do I mean by stuck? I mean this. It seems like you're at an impasse. It seems like things aren't able to move forward for you.
The process.
And what will help you move forward? What do you need to move forward?
to keep having the space to feel what I feel and communicate how I feel. And
Okay.
yeah,
So is there something you're carrying? And maybe you're holding a burden and with this anger. Sometimes protectors need to unburden first. Is there something that makes sense to you or feels true for you?
makes it makes sense at the moment. So there isn't access to that stage of the healing because the emotions are need to be fully witnessed and understood first.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm here. What would you like to share?
So that was some other part speaking, not the killer part. So go back to the killer part.
Okay. Well, I'm curious. Maybe I should check in first about you. I'm the one that spoke. Well, why did you need to speak for him?
Because if he would have spoke, he could have been rude. Yeah,
So you don't like him being rude?
there are other parts that are afraid of it
Okay. Rude about his friend or rude to me
to
or
you.
okay. What's funny?
The dynamic in my system is funny.
Oh, the dynamic. Okay.
Yeah,
They're wanting to protect me, which I think is somewhat interesting.
because in their perspective, if the killer part would speak exactly as he is, he might cause some triggers in your system, which would then not be in the best interest of the progression of our session. And it would
Oh,
also lead to abandonment anxiety with some part in me. So
all right.
yeah,
Just curious. So what would progress this? And I guess I'm curious because what I'm hearing is you're protecting a protector.
what will progress is um, when you got curious about the killer part, and then he shared about these motherfuckers, we'll just continue with the curiosity there.
Okay. All right. So I guess there's a part of me that gets curious why you don't just share. Like you're welcome to. I'm curious why you need me to, in a sense, and this is coming a little bit from apart, but why do you need me to beg you to do it? You're here. You're welcome to share.
No, I'm just suggesting you continue talking with the killer part and continue with the curiosity towards him.
Well, the killer part is welcome to talk.
So
You're here.
he,
Speak.
no,
I,
I
I
need you
I guess
to
I
not.
don't know what the questions are or what you want to share. If this is something you're having that's difficult about this friend, this is your opportunity to be witnessed.
Yeah, but I'm not talking from the killer part now. So
All right. Well, is the killer here? And killer, would you like to speak about what's going on for you? You're welcome to.
yes, I'm extremely fucking furious
Okay. Tell me about your anger. I want to hear it. And I'm not afraid of your anger because I know you're not angry at me.
a week ago. There was this process where some other part has helped me to see that former friend, to see his inner child and to see him as a child, and then that calmed me down to a degree. But then there's still the very strong sense of disrespect. It's like I don't understand how the fuck can he even live next to me.
Yeah. What do you want to do? What would you like to do to him or for him? Maybe throw him out a window. I don't know.
Well, there was the this dark fantasy to threaten his life to make him pay the money.
Yeah.
Of course, I wouldn't do it.
I mean, I have to be honest with you. I want to be upfront with you. There's a part of me that enjoys you. I have parts that enjoy anger. You're welcome to your anger, and I I think anger is an absolutely valuable, important, and necessary part. And it's unfortunate to me in our world, and quite frankly, in my opinion, especially in therapy in general, that anger gets exiled all the time. You're more than welcome here.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So I'm sorry that that's happened to you. So
Yeah. So then, let's say Neo was inviting me to indulge in that dark fantasy, and in this dark fantasy, before the before he blocked me on WhatsApp, like a week or 2 weeks before or three, he was saying, "You know who I am. You know I will give you back your money." And no,
yeah,
motherfucker, I don't know who the fuck you are if you behave like this.
yeah,
So, so he knows me. So then I have a desire
uh,
to to revenge, and then
yeah.
come out of nowhere with being a fucking psycho while he's sleeping to wake him up with a knife on his fucking face.
It's like apocalypse now, right? You're gonna show up.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
And telling him, "You said that I know you and you will give me back my money. Where the fuck is it?"
There's part of this, right, that's somewhat humorous, but I'm also very clear how angry you are and how disappointed you are for Neo, right?
Yes. And the money issue is just a symptom to the degree of betrayal
Yeah.
that I feel from him.
And this isn't the first time, right? And I don't mean necessarily him, but betrayal is what you're connected to. Never again will Neo have to be betrayed.
And immediately it threw me back to previous experiences of betrayal. And I had big time with my mom. And I told you about this best friend when I was in fourth grade. So that betrayal, how people can flip so fucking hard from being a friend to being a foe.
Yeah. Yeah. What's that been like for you?
What happened with him? Shook that child part within me so hard
Hmm.
that I assumed that immediately some suppressing part came in and compartmentalized it so I could put proper boundaries.
Hmm.
And now those that part or parts are coming out of the abyss.
And what's in the abyss? What does that mean when you say that?
There is a part in a state of shock, and pain to a degree that I'm not even conscious of.
So that's likely the exile's pain. You're trying to make sure it doesn't get out.
I don't know if it's me who's trying to not let it out. I think it's an automatic behavior of some other parts. Because when I talked with Rachel a week or two ago, and she mirrored back to me that she perceives that there's it's oppression happening around this friend, something kind of moved in my system. And the day after, I felt that collapse pattern happening.
Hmm.
And the only time that I can, interesting word, my when I talked about betrayal. So one of the strongest experiences was with my first girlfriend. There was betrayal there.
Was there not some betrayal with mom and dad, grandma? I mean, I think there was betrayal earlier for you. Maybe you're not connected to it, but
No, for
I'm
sure.
curious about that.
When I was trying to connect with it, immediately a part came up and was thinking about O and how she's going to leave the island in a few days. Very sadness. That's why did that come up now.
Mm. It, so that's not a betrayal, though, right? Just making sure that.
No,
Okay.
and I think the reason why it came up is because she's the closest person to me here on the island,
Hmm.
and that part is looking for closeness.
Okay. So what I'm
So
sort of
try
think. Oh,
try
go ahead.
try try and talk with this part that is
Well,
going.
hold on, hold on. I'm going to follow my own curiosity for a moment. Um, I was quiet for a moment because I was curious about this um, loneliness.
Mhm.
Loneliness. Tell me more about your loneliness because I'm following my own self energy, and there's likely something in this loneliness that we should explore.
That was the part that I wanted you to speak with. The part that is experiencing the loneliness.
Yeah.
So
So there's a part that's lonely. I'd like to connect with you. I think that you're lonely regarding this former friend too. There's a part that's mad. He's entitled to that. I think you're lonely missing him.
I am.
Tell me about that.
We had so many memories and experiences and beautiful moments together.
It's sad. Sad. You were likely polarized with the angry one. You're in a tussle. You're in a disagreement or a battle with the angry one. You're sad about it. He's angry about it.
Mhm.
And what do you want me to know about your sadness?
Plus, there's this sort of collapse, knowing that the connection that I have with him is gone.
Yeah. And now that it's gone, what does that mean for you? What does that mean when connections are gone?
I don't know, I just experience this sort of powerlessness, and then I just want to smoke all day.
Okay. And does that help? Does that work?
It numbs it.
I'm sorry to laugh, but like, yeah. But is that what you want? Is that what you want?
And actually, so that's Alpha speaking. It's not that it only numbs it, it's when I smoke weed, I'm able to experience fun by myself.
Hmm.
I have a certain type of access to some parts where I could be at home all by myself and these some parts will come up and do silly stuff and then some other parts will laugh.
Hmm.
It's really fun. And it's sad that I don't have this access when I'm not on leave.
Tell me, hang on, I'm gonna ask you so. I'm not quite getting what's the fun part? The fun part? I sort of missed that. I'm sorry.
The weed gives me a connection to child parts and kind of goofy parts. And so because they are more present, I experience fun. For example,
Okay.
let's say I could experience, let's say, a desire to invite some girl to hang out with me because there's a need for connection. If I smoke weed, that need of connection is being met from the inside. And then if that whatever girl will come or will not come, I don't care to the point where sometimes I would even prefer time with my own parts than with other people because it's so fun.
Hmm. So the weed, right? And I'm curious about this. It's an aside, but I'm curious about, I mean, you've used weed, you've used LSD, you've microdosed with other things. I'm wondering if there's a part that thinks you need something more than you have. Because I guess I'm just curious, and this is really coming. I'm hoping that it's coming from self or self-like for sure. I'm just curious why you aren't enough. I'm speaking about his whole system.
I wouldn't say it's about me not being enough. It's just certain substances will bring up certain parts more. For example, if
Okay,
I use caffeine, I experience the opposite.
but
Like
but does it affect other parts? And it may not, but like if you use caffeine, does it suppress another part? And I
either
wonder how
that,
that part feels about it.
either that, or it really gives more power to other parts. So, for example, caffeine will bring up my masculine part very strongly.
Right. And what I'm inviting in this discussion is it could have unintended consequences. It could help in some ways. It could be challenging in some other ways because other parts are being pushed away.
Mhm. So, for example, I have parts that really enjoyed being under the influence of weed with my ex because it allows the child parts to be more present in the system,
Hmm.
be more embodied.
And you get this embodiment, but who gets the embodiment?
The child parts, for example.
What if what if it's not the child part? What if it's whatever part wants to do it?
I don't understand the question.
I, okay, yeah. I'm not disagreeing. I apologize if it sounds like I was saying because that it did come out wrong. So I'm gonna back up. While the child part is getting embodied, certain protectors are getting promoted and certain protectors are getting demoted. And I think it could, again, I'm not here to tell your system what is happening, but I think it could be long term affecting self's ability to be fully present because we're inviting, well, this part's going to do this and this part's going to do this and this part's going to do this. In order to get the exiles embodied.
What's your
I'm not
point?
telling you not. Hmm?
Oh, I don't understand what's your
But
point.
yeah, my point is you have said you long for increased self energy. I'm curious if this is the way to go.
What is
Because
exactly?
isn't it embodying parts to do the work of self?
I don't understand the connection of what you're saying.
Well, if the ultimate goal is to be more self-embodied,
Right.
is promoting parts to do the work of self going to get you more self-energy?
Depends on the situation. But I don't
I'm curious
understand why we are going this path right now.
because it was following something that I was curious about.
So I'm not following your thread.
Yeah.
We were talking about the part that feels lonely because he has a need for connection, and then I said that sometimes that smoking weed enables to receive a
Yeah.
connection from the inside rather than from
And
the outside.
what if you didn't have to use weed? What if you could just connect with the
That's the ideal.
parts themselves?
That's the ideal. Of course, I
Yeah.
wish I would have that.
Okay. So then let's ask it this way. What is the block or the challenge to that?
Shame.
That's the point. Shame. All right. Well, then let's heal it.
How?
Uh, you step back and allow Neo's system to heal, right? It's what all this is about, is inviting the parts to step back so the exiles can heal. They don't have to do it with weed. They can do it with Neo's self energy. And of course, weed can be helpful, but weed isn't self energy.
I experienced that there is an agenda for healing in this session very strongly.
Yeah, there is. Aren't isn't IFS about healing burdened parts?
There's a difference between agenda and intention.
You'll have to explain that to me, 'cause I'm not sure
So,
about what
so
that means.
I'm experiencing that you have a part that has an agenda to heal the system
Okay, versus an intention would be like just putting it out
themselves.
there.
Yes.
Okay.
And then trusting what, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, because I just am curious about your system today, and I've thought about it before and we've talked about it before, but um, there seem to be parts of you that are, I don't think you'll like the word, but I use it anyways, resistant to allowing that to happen.
We have agreed on that, of course.
Yeah.
But it is what it is at the moment. So
So back to the part that uses weed to connect. Let's go back there.
there is a so when it comes to weed, there is a plus and a minus to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Reaching levels of healing, like unburdening, is impossible on weed. That's the downside
Mm.
because it numbs too much of some parts.
Yeah. And the upside is getting to something, probably. That makes sense to me. It's like
The upside
without it, you might not
is
get there.
the upside would be it calms the system. It moves my system more from the headspace to the body and enjoy.
Why do you think you're not calm?
Not that I'm not calm, it's my system is very intense
Okay, why is your system so intense?
because there's a connection to the sense of purpose and calling.
Did that last part? I
Because
couldn't
there is
hear all of
a
it.
very strong connection to the sense of purpose and calling and mission.
Okay.
So the focus of the
What,
inner work is very strong.
so that's an intense agenda.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a part that's pushing healing, right? Which is
You could say
interesting.
so. You could say so.
Which is interesting, right? Because there's like some parallel
Mhm,
something going on there.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah. Neat. I just find that interesting. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if if it's okay, I'd like to speak to that. I'm not sure it's a part, so I'm going to call it like subsystem, that subsystem. If that intensity, that in purpose and calling doesn't happen, what next? What then? I would assume there's something that you're concerned or worried about if you don't get that purpose or calling.
So this is coming from the demon.
Okay.
What is the question again?
Sure. Sure. The question is, if you don't get to this purpose and calling, then what? Like that's what some part of you is striving for. Is like that's what I just asked. Like, why is there some this like because there's a purpose, because there's a calling.
Right.
Okay. If that doesn't happen, then what? If you don't get to your purpose, if you don't get to your calling.
So the purpose and mission and calling is to become more and more aware while orienting myself in a truthful manner.
And do you know self is going to do all those things?
Of course.
Okay.
But unfortunately, at the current layer of the system, there isn't enough access to self as used to be a few years ago.
Okay.
This is where we're at.
How did you have it then? What changed?
How did I have it then? I had way more default levels of self. And what changed is so being in that state for 2 or 3 years, I came back home and I was crying out of gratitude of life, which was a very common pattern for me to experience. And then there was the part that's saying, I wonder when the next downfall will happen, because after every downfall, after every fall, there is a rise. So if
Hmm.
things are good now and they are fucking amazing, after I'll go to the next layer and I'll come on top of it, then it will be even more amazing than what it was. That
Okay.
happened probably
So to
five
get
years
to the
ago.
next layer is going to require what?
To go through, let's say, hell, to reach heaven eventually, to go through it.
And so are you in hell?
A lot of the time, yes.
Uh, Say that again,
A
all of
lot,
the time or
a
some,
lot
a
of the
lot of the
time,
time?
yes, compared
Okay.
to the initial
So how do you
awakening
get out
phase,
of hell? So how do you get out of hell?
doing the inner work and orienting myself in
You're
a
doing the inner
truthful
work,
manner. I am
and you're also truthful.
doing my best
So I guess I'm just gonna ask a curious question, why not get out of hell?
because I need to go through it, not out of it,
Okay.
through it.
So how have you not gone through it? Or what do you still need to go through?
What I'm doing, processing the emotions.
Okay. So process them. You're invited to process them. And I am gonna hold that because like what I feel that your system is asking me to do that work for you, right? Process your inner emotions.
I'm doing it every fucking day, almost.
Okay. Then I know it's gonna sound like a broken record, but then I would say then why not go to heaven?
How?
Letting go of whatever it is that's holding you back.
How?
Um, I don't, trying to think like you have the answer to that question.
I have,
Um,
but we have a disagreement here.
what's that?
I experience you saying just let go, just heal, just. But if I could press the button and for that to happen, I would do it. Why wouldn't I?
Well, I think I'm saying more than that. I think I'm saying there's a resistance in your system to doing just that. Because ultimately, that is what happens, right? You just let go. But there's something, right? And there's energy around it right in this moment that's saying like, well, if I could just do that, I would. Well, how did you do it in the past? You said well, I did the inner work. Okay, well then do the inner work.
But I'm doing it.
Okay.
It's just the current layer is different than how it was before.
Okay. Okay,
For
tell me more about
example,
that.
for
What's
example,
different
in the
about it?
previous layer, when I initially, let's say, quote unquote, awakened, which means experiencing healing trauma for the first time, I had a different exile every few days,
Okay.
another exile. And then the more I
Yeah.
progressed on the journey, the frequency that of how many exiles I meet, like let's say it was like exile, 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 exile. Now it's like this. Exile
Yeah.
after a few months, another exile after a few months,
Mm.
instead of having it every few days. So it's a different layer.
Yeah.
It's a
And
different level of density.
I heard you say earlier that and I'm not saying that exactly correctly, but you said that um it's not happening or like it happened before and now you're like back down and I guess I don't see that. I see you significantly more self-led than whatever this part. And I think that's where this disagreement is coming in. I think there's a part of you that doesn't hold that and I hold, well, you have a shit ton of self-energy. Certainly more than you did then. So I'm curious what
But
holds
not
it back.
accessible.
I don't know what that means. I'm curious about what that means.
For
Why
example,
isn't it accessible?
when I say I'm in a certain type of layer in the system where it's very dense, how what how do you interpret that?
That I interpret that as a part that's keeping you from accessing self energy.
Or parts. Okay, and then your suggestion would be okay, so just talk with the part to ask them to give more self energy, right?
Well, to find out why they don't want to do that. But I'm pretty sure you have a pretty clear idea why they don't want to do that.
And we spoke about it. It's what I told you about. It's as if visiting an alien. It's too much for some parts because
Okay.
they're so deep in their dense reality.
Right.
Then
So
experiencing,
so we ask them not to do that, right? So we ask them to just let
but
out a
it's not
little
about
bit at a
doing it. It's
time.
their state.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. You have to explain that to me too.
If aliens were coming to Earth right now, humanity would lose her shit, right? Completely. There
Mm,
would be complete chaos.
Some people would. Some people would embrace it.
Of course, but most of the people would lose their shit, right? Do you agree with me?
And I'll hold what I'm saying. So some wouldn't, some wouldn't. But yes, a lot of people would, and a lot of people would love it.
Right. So the people that would lose their shit, for them, it's too much. It's like being unplugged from the matrix when the mind is not ready. So that's the thing.
So what so what will get them ready? Okay, that's where we're at. What will get them ready? And your answer is doing the work, right?
Yes. And what gets
Okay.
them ready is gradual exposure to self energy. That's what they need, as it seems.
And I'm not in it's I know parts are hearing it. I'm not I just see you full of self energy. So I guess I have a disconnect about what holds your system back because I just see self energy everywhere. So, and I believe it. I believe that they're held back. I'm not, it's just, it's curious. It's a very curious thing around so much self energy and parts saying it's not enough.
It's the opposite. It's too much.
Too much self energy.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. That
And
is
this,
intriguing.
yes.
Intriguing.
And
Yeah.
then it causes overwhelm. That's what I told you. The example I gave you with the aliens. It's too much of an overwhelm from some parts because they believe the exact opposite. They're a monster,
Okay.
evil.
S- So this is really, really helpful. So maybe protectors need the unburdening. So it won't be too much for them.
Um, I'm open to that, but doesn't
Yeah.
I don't see a pathway for that.
Doesn't resonate. Doesn't resonate with you. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just it's
And,
just
and I'll
curious.
give you I'll give you an example. When a few years when I had the very high levels of self energy, I could walk by the beach and I could walk with my eyes closed, and I would feel very strong sense of self. My breathing
Hmm.
would be very easy and full.
Hmm.
Nowadays, let's say from 1 to 10, I had it back then 10. Now,
Uh-huh.
for me to reach that 10 is very uncommon.
So
Like
is it and
it's like I
is
will
it
need to I will need to very, very consciously
yeah.
tap into it as if I'm about to do a therapy session.
So is it this? Like is it that back then like the system didn't know what was happening and now it's like whoa. that's like intense. Is
Back
that part
then,
of it?
back then, I would say in the certain layer of the system that was present, that layer could be exposed to self in a manner that felt safe, it, and it felt safe.
Okay, okay. And these layers don't for whatever reason, right? I mean, we don't have to get into it, but at the moment, but
That's my
these layers
theory.
don't feel safe. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
And by the way, all of this, I appreciate this. It's extremely helpful because a part of me is just kind of like, well, my gosh, his system, or I was going to say he, and that would, his system has so much self-energy. I'm just sort of stymied why there isn't this just, walk through and release, right? But it's helping me understand more clearly.
to simplify it, the cognitive dissonance is too strong for some parts to experience the level of self in my system. That will be the
So
simplest.
IFS says the way to address that is then in which you're doing, right? But is inviting the parts that hold the cognitive dissonance to see that it's safe enough. And you're
Yeah,
doing that. Like so don't hear
exactly,
that as like, but
exactly.
that's yeah.
So I'm doing it, and these certain parts in this layer, they, unfortunately or not, they have a certain pace that
Yeah.
they are able
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
withstand
Sure.
without completely collapsing or I don't know.
And this pace is certainly different than 3 years ago. Or I mean,
Then
whenever,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Back then,
this one is slower than then.
way, 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 way slower.
Is that is it annoying at all for you? And trust me, like I'm not annoyed. I'm just truly curious, but I'm wondering if that's
If
a
it's
bother
annoying
for
for
you.
me, I understand that every pod has their own pace. So if it's
Because
annoying, I
I
mean,
guess there's at least one part I would think because its agenda is the calling, right? And I forget the other word you said.
mission and purpose, but
Mission. Yeah,
but
mission.
but the journey is also it. So as long as
Okay.
I'm walking that path, I'm in the mission and purpose.
Yeah. And
And however long it takes, it takes. I don't know. I don't have an agenda to it.
and I had a part that's like, well, then let's get you there. And but I do want to add it was coming from this place of like, well, there's a shit ton of self-energy. So I mean, why don't we just do it? But I'm hearing these parts have a different pace about self-energy.
Yes.
And the self-energy itself is actually a part of their concern, which is intriguing to me. I get it, but it's really fascinating.
It's
Really fascinating.
it's the same thing. Okay, so I'll bring you back to uh 4 years ago when I was sitting at the beach. I connected to the demon, and then I saw how everybody has demons, and I saw people as demons. It didn't scare me, and I thought interesting. And I stood up, I started to walk, and then the only way for me to conceptualize it is suddenly I was in full embodiment of self or Christ consciousness, where I felt complete presence, and it was also maybe like being like a baby, where I could look everyone in the eyes without feeling the slightest uncomfortability, and I perceived everyone as being my children, and it lasted for like 30 seconds, and then bam, a
Mm.
very strong panic happened.
Was that the first time, right? So is that like I'm curious if that's when the system said, whoa, that's too much, right? And again, this is super helpful because I'm getting clearer and clearer on why this is slow. Like I think the system saw this vision, and then these protectors are like, oh my gosh, that's
Yeah,
bigger, more overwhelming, et cetera, than we
yes,
can take.
yes.
Yeah. And why? I'm afraid of asking this question on some level because a part of me is thinking you might think it's dumb, but I am curious. Why is that too much for them? I mean, because you come across, or like at least aspects of you come across as being okay with being self-actualized and more. And so why is certain parts of you not okay with more and stepping into all that is available to you? Does that question make sense?
So the first thing that came up is there's a certain layer that is in a very deep trauma, not trusting anything. So let's say a part that doesn't
Hmm.
trust anything, not even himself. And I'll give you an
Yeah.
example for it. So let's say 3 years ago, I was doing my beach walk, and then I saw an article about this spiritual healer type of guy back in Israel who was, I didn't know who he is, but apparently he was very famous in the community back in Israel. And then they did an investigation on him, and they found out that he was molesting some of his patients. And then
Okay.
he did a post on Facebook, something spiritual, his story, and he committed suicide.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
When I read that, a part in
Okay.
me started to panic
Sure.
because that part said, well, if this is possible, like looking at the other guy, maybe Neo is like this as well.
Right. Right.
And then I felt the panic of that part. So I immediately texted that friend of mine, and he
Yeah.
kind of talked
Yeah.
to that part in me.
No, I get it. I hear this. I hear that. And again, it's so helpful. And I mean, it's about our work together,
Hmm.
but this is so helpful for me to understand what the barrier is.
Hmm.
And I know these are being recorded and we're nearing our end, but I, I want to watch this one again and again because I think it's going to be so helpful for me and work with you and others. And I really hope a lot of therapists watch this to understand that at in a sense advanced IFS. I hope that makes sense. Like, well, why? I mean, if there's all this self energy, then why don't you,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
fucking heal already? Excuse my language, but
Yes. Yes.
but this deep terror, and I'm so grateful for you explaining it to me. I mean, I can't put words around that, but but I appreciate it. I appreciate it deeply.
Yeah. When I coughed, because uh, something like bursted up in my system, and I had a
Oh,
little bit of shivers right now from a part
oh,
that is saying that what just happened here in the session is so fucking cool and awesome.
yeah, yeah, it is. It really
It,
is. I feel it too, like
mhm,
energized.
mhm,
Yeah,
yeah.
because we worked through and didn't shut down or didn't get stuck. We worked through the disconnect, and
Hmm.
it's really beautiful. Yeah.
I felt the presence of the demon
Mm.
saying, giving another prediction that there will come a time where I would have more access. The system will have more access to self
Mm.
than
Yeah,
the
I can
first.
feel it. I can feel it. I'm getting emotional.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
rewatching this session after that happens will be quite a thing.
I'm just teasing. I'm teasing about this, but hurry up and get it uploaded. No, I'm just kidding. I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
kidding.
Will
Just
do.
kidding. But yeah, I'm looking forward to reviewing this one. But yeah, thank you so much for explaining this. It was
Hmm.
super helpful. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And there was some. impatience on my side of parts, and I'm thankful that it didn't deter you away.
Yeah.
That was the
No, no,
concern of. Yeah.
I accept that, but yeah, and it's interesting, right? Because there was sort of a parallel process, right? Because I had impatience and you're impatience, and yeah, no, it's the beauty of the work. So yeah,
Yes,
I appreciate it. All right, sir. We'll see you next week.
I just felt a very strong rush of gratitude
Well,
that
thank you.
this
I received
kind of,
that.
let's say, spar between parts is also welcome.
Yeah. Right. Yes. That's right. Yeah. Parts can be energetic and that's
Mhm,
welcome. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you next week and we'll go from there. Thanks for your self energy.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right. Bye.